Hey everybody, it's Tom, and I'm coming to you this evening with one further video about themes found in Rollo Discovery of Being, Writings in Existential Psychology. The previous few segments, what I've discussed in terms of major themes or moments, are the importance of decision, reframing our concept of world or worldness, to appreciate the multifaceted nature of our relationship with context, and reframing our conception of time, understanding our relationship to temporality as one which accents the future as a sort of space from which the present and the past inherit their definition. In that kind of inversion of a tendency to emphasize the past, what you then hopefully encounter is a sense of emancipation and then a capacity to realize through action freedom, potential. And in connection with that latter term, potential, and after this I'm going to move on to different texts, but what you also find discussed or talked about in Rollo text is how we understand guilt and the relationship between neurotic and problematic guilt and what he terms more for ontological guilt, the guilt built into our structure, the structure of our experience as human being. I'm not especially happy with his usage of the word guilt, even with reference to ontological guilt, because it's such a charged term and tends to bring to bear a good deal of baggage, theologically and otherwise. But be that as it may, to what he is referring when he says that we all encounter a measure of ontological guilt is the situation that as we enter into the world, we have innumerable potentialities that we can fulfill. We can elect to learn new language, learn to play different instruments, learn to enter into a different sport, and so on and so forth, right? Learning is just sort of the most obvious, learning skills is the most obvious way to sort of put this in relief. But it's not just about skill acquisition and attainment. Every time we make a decision of any sort, what we're doing is we're enacting a possibility. And in so enacting that possibility, we exclude or cut ourselves off from other possibilities. And the sense of guilt ontologically refers to the fact that we are destined to only actualize a small portion of our potential. That does not represent a moral fault per se, but it does impart to us a sense of responsibility and gravity in our decisions which may not have been explicitly present in an antecedent manner. When with awareness, though, we make those decisions, understanding that there is, as our capitalist friends might say, there is opportunity cost involved. That awareness hopefully will allow us to bring a presence to those decisions that obviates the ascent of pathological guilt in their wake. By pathological guilt, I mean the sense of affliction and regret and then subsequent almost paralysis that can impede our forward movement through life as a whole. And Certainly we have all chosen at certain points to enact potentialities which are not in keeping, which are not congruent with the kind of fuller identity we would want to compose and the process of being a human being. To deal with that spilt milk, however, I think entails acknowledging that the fact of that spilt milk does have a silver lining, the silver lining being that we can reassert ourselves in a way that frees us from the implications of the past. Which brings us back to the question of time and temporality. But that's just sort of one vector along which he talks about how guilt can manifest itself. There are other vectors, and another interesting one that he talks about is the structural guilt in our relationship with other people. And what he means there is that we can never fully know another person. The strictures of encounter, even positive encounter, still only grant a glimpse, a facet, a profile of that other person, those other persons, whose depth, being infinite, ultimately defies our capacity to plumb in a finite fashion. So what's encouraging about that awareness is the humility which it can inspire. And not a pathological humility, but a positive humility that gives us an openness in dealing with other people that can inform our decisions and our actions in a positive light. And I personally found that reframing of guilt and our understanding of guilt, and again, I'm not exactly enthused by that particular word. The German word is I don't know the exact German word, but it can also be translated in terms of indebtedness. I'm sorry that the word escapes me at the moment, which perhaps is a better word than guilt, because it isn't at least a better translation than guilt, because at least in the discourse of the American and English language or dialects, it isn't as laden with those theological presuppositions that can hamstring conversation. So much then for some themes coming out of Rollo May's Discovery of Being, Writings in Existential Psychology. I hope that my remarks, my recapitulation, my comments upon his work have stimulated some reflection on your part. And I just encourage you to go and check out Rollo May and his works, which extend beyond the single short text that I was referencing. And, obviously, I encourage you to check out existentialism in general. I feel as a tradition it can powerfully inform our current moment. So I just leave it there for now. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'm not certain what I'm going to discuss next. I've got a few irons in the fire, but I suppose that's that for now, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Ciao.